Ladies and gentlemen, Honorable Minister of Trade and Industry, His Excellency Professor Benedict Orama, President and Chairman of the Board of Directors of Afreximbank, Your Excellency Ambassador Albert Muchanga, African Union Commissioner for Trade and Industry, welcome to this ceremony. Actually, we are having a special event right now, and I would like to kindly request all of you to remain seated, then we can start. Today, we are going to witness a very big event, which we're going to tell you more later on. Actually, the Africa Export-Import Bank, in collaboration with the African Union and the government of the Republic of Rwanda, will be hosting the second Intra-Africa Trade Fair to be held in Kigali from the 1st to 7th September 2020. Without taking much of your time, let me request our colleague at the technical to show us the video. Please.
The African Export-Import Bank, Afreximbank, in collaboration with the African Union and the government of the Republic of Rwanda, brings you the second edition of the Intra-African Trade Fair, IATF 2020, to be hosted by the government of the Republic of Rwanda in Kigali from the 1st to the 7th of September 2020.
I think that you agree with me that the 2018 Inter-African Trade Fair has been a tremendous success. For us, it surpassed all our expectations in every measure.
It has all been a great success, and that each of you must have had insightful discussions.
IATF 2020 is expected to attract over 1,100 exhibitors and 5,000 conference participants from more than 55 countries and to generate over $40 billion in trade and investment deals. IATF 2020 will provide a unique and valuable platform for businesses to access an integrated African market of over 1.2 billion people with a GDP of over 2.5 trillion, created under the African Continental Free Trade Area.
The first Intra-African Trade Fair is the first deliverable of the African Continental Free Trade Area, even before the agreement has entered into force.
IATF 2020 will consist of an exhibition, a trade and investment forum comprising of the IATF 2020 conference, featuring leading African and international speakers, and a variety of sessions on, among others, African trade and investment, opportunities under the African Continental Free Trade Area, and training workshops covering exporting, standards, and marketing. Business-to-business and business-to-government matchmaking and exchanges, allowing buyers and sellers, governments and investors to meet and conclude business and investment deals. Country days for selected countries to showcase their trade, investment, tourism, and cultural opportunities. A virtual trade fair, providing buyers, sellers, exhibitors, and countries an interactive online platform where they can showcase their goods, services, and investment opportunities. Creative Africa, which includes a fashion show, music, film, a Creative Africa Summit, and a dedicated creative industry exhibition. African heads of state, ministers responsible for trade, industry and finance, central bank governors and captains of industry will be participating from the 1st to the 7th of September 2020. Afreximbank, the African Union and the government of the Republic of Rwanda invite you to join us in Kigali, Intra-African Trade Fair, Transforming Africa. To register and get more information, visit www.intraafricantradefair.com, promoted by Afreximbank in collaboration with the African Union and the government of Rwanda.
Thank you so much. As you can see on the video projected, the African Export-Import Bank has a strong advocate for the use of ICT to boost intra-Africa trade, has chosen the Transform Africa Economic Forum to sign this important hosting agreement and invites all of you to attend it too. Without further delay, let me welcome Professor Benedicto Orama, President of the Afreximbank, to come to the stage for his remarks. Thank you.
Your Excellency, the Honorable Minister of Trade and Industry of the Republic of Rwanda, Honorable Soraya Hakizayarema, Your Excellency, Ambassador Albert Muchanga, Commissioner for Trade and Industry of the African Union, Honorable Ministers, senior Rwandan government officials here present, Mrs. Kana Yawani, the Managing Director of Intra-African Trade Initiative at Afreximbank, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it gives me a great pleasure to be back in this beautiful city of Kigali, again to launch the Intra-African Trade Fair. I recall that we launched the inaugural Intra-African Trade Fair, that is the Intra-African Trade Fair 2018, here in this conference center. And that was done in March last year, during the landmark African Union Summit, where more than 44 countries signed the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Today, as a mark of significant progress, 52 countries have signed the AfCFTA agreement, and 22 countries have ratified the agreement, paving the way for it to come into force. The city of Kigali has therefore cemented its place in history as a city where concrete steps towards Africa's regional integration were taken. We are very pleased that the IATF 2020 hosting agreement will be signed on the sidelines of the Transform Africa Summit 2019. The youth and technology will drive Africa's trade and development aspirations. Identifying with them makes sense. Afreximbank identifies with them, and we are pleased to be here today. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the coming into force of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is a historical event in the development journey of Africa. It demonstrates the resolve of African leaders to convert the assumed challenge posed by Africa's diversity into an economic development opportunity. In the past, Africa's rich diversity has been used as an instrument of division, not unity, as a demonstration of weakness, not strength, as an instrument for penetrating and exploiting the continent, not to build it. Yet, we all know and always say that diversity is the spice of life. with strokes of the pen delivered with confidence, African leaders a year ago began a process of putting Africa's destiny in its own hands. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, with the political act of putting Africa on the path to an integrated continental market done, the clarion call is now on businesses to rise to the challenge, to explore and exploit the boundless opportunities. Those who understand the economic history and sociology of Africa know that this is a tall order. What opportunity can a business person in Nigeria explore in Burundi when he or she may not, in fact, be aware that Burundi is in Africa? What business can a Zambian business person pursue in Burkina Faso when that businessman does not know what Burkinabés produce? Why does DRC import certain kinds of pharmaceuticals from faraway lands when the same products are exported by Egypt at much lower cost? Can a Tunisian bank accept a letter of credit issued by the most solid bank in Tanzania in support of import of Tunisian goods by the Tanzanians? And indeed, how many Africans are aware that some Egyptian companies have the capacity to construct complex dams and even undersea tunnels? Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, people say all the time that the greatest constraint to boosting intra-African trade is infrastructure deficit. I always respond, no. The problem is lack of information. Infrastructure problem is a generalized problem. The question we always ask ourselves is, if available infrastructure can carry $1 trillion of trade as it does today, why is the intra-African trade share of that trade only $150 billion? Why is it not $400 or $500 billion? We therefore need to deal with the challenge that information gap has if we hope to achieve the goals of the AFCFTA. At Afreximbank, we believe that the urgent problem to tackle is the information deficit. The Intra-African Trade Fair is one of Afreximbank's interventions to support the implementation of the AFCFTA. In collaboration with the African Union, we have developed an integrated program for improving access to trade information, of which the Intra-African Trade Fair is a key element. The objective of the trade fair is to create a sustainable platform for sharing trade and investment information and connecting buyers and sellers across Africa. The inaugural edition, that is the IATF 2018, which was held in Cairo late last year, was a huge success, reflecting the hunger of our businesses to seek out opportunities across the continent. The fair in Cairo attracted over 1,000 exhibitors from 45 countries and across 20 sectors. Over $32 billion in investment and trade deals were concluded, and I'm pleased to announce today that Afreximbank has financed some of them. And in fact, just 2 months ago, we concluded the financing of one project that was signed there amounting to $2.9 billion. IATF 2020 will be convened under the theme Breaking Barriers and Building Bridges for a Successful AfCFTA. It will consist of a 7-day trade show that will provide a platform for sharing trade and investment information, as well as other market information. It will also enable buyers and sellers, as well as investors and countries, to meet, discuss, and conclude business deals. It will provide an opportunity for exhibitors to showcase their goods and services and engage in business-to-business exchanges. Technology will be a critical component of the initiatives to support the trade fair. In this regard, the virtual trade fair that we began to build in 2018 will be expanded to ensure it becomes a credible platform for trade exhibitions in Africa. I invite all the technology-savvy young people attending this Transform Africa Summit to avail themselves of this opportunity. We are very pleased that Rwanda won the bid to host the IATF 2020. The significant economic development progress made by Rwanda over the last few years is an example for other African countries to follow. With Rwanda's support, we are expecting that IATF 2020 will build on the tremendous progress made last year and be bigger, greater, and achieve far more in terms of trade and development. Working with our partners, the African Union, and the host, that's the government of Rwanda, we have set ourselves ambitious targets of attracting over 1,000 exhibitors, execution of intra-African trade deals worth over $40 billion, and attracting over 10,000 buyers and conference participants from over 50 countries during that event. We even expect much more visitors to visit the stands during the trade fair. There will also be an IATF trade and investment forum that will focus on practical challenges affecting the implementation of the AfCFTA and provide solutions on how to address the challenges and exploit the opportunities offered by that landmark agreement. Some of the practical solutions that will be showcased by Afreximbank will include the Pan-African Payments and Settlement Platform, which we are also launching at the AU Extraordinary Summit of Heads of State that will be holding in Niamey, Niger in July. The system will facilitate the settlement of intra-African trade in local currencies. We are very grateful to His Excellency President Paul Kagame and his government for their visionary decision to compete to host the IATF 2020. We congratulate them and the people of Rwanda for winning the bid. We look forward to the usual Rwandan efficiency as we prepare for the IATF 2020. Honorable Ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me close my remarks by echoing the words of the Pan-African leader whose vision was an Africa that is politically and economically emancipated, a continent that is integrated. This is no other than President Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana. He said, and I quote, "The forces that unite us are intrinsic and greater than the superimposed influences that keep us apart. We face neither east nor west. We face forward," unquote. Indeed, I call on us all to take responsibility and unite in realizing our shared vision for one African market. I invite Africans and the whole world to IATF 2020 Kigali, Rwanda during 1st to 7th September 2020. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Professor Benedict, for your remarks. I would like now to introduce Ambassador Albert Muchanga, Commissioner for Trade and Industry at the African Union. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Director of Ceremony, the Honorable Minister responsible for trade of this great country, the President of the African Export-Import Bank, the Honorable Ministers here present, the Managing Director of the African Export-Import Bank, and distinguished delegates who are here. We are very happy as African Union to be back in Kigali, which is very historic in two respects, already outlined by the President of the African Export-Import Bank. In this very hall, on 21st March last year, the heads of state and government decided to open for signature the agreement establishing the African Continental Free Trade Area. We had anticipated 28 countries to sign after having consulted extensively with the delegations. We were splendidly surprised that at the end of the signing ceremony, 44 countries signed. And this was followed by another 5 in July the same year when we went to the assembly meeting in Nouakchott, Mauritania. And this year again in February during the assembly meeting, 3 additional countries signed, giving us 52 signatures. The other historic event was the formal launch of preparations for the first edition, or the inaugural edition of the Intra-African Trade Fair. We are confident that it was going to be a success. And we worked very hard to market it both in Africa and around the world. And the response was very, very good and very encouraging. I will not go into the statistics because the President went through all the statistics in terms of country participation, in terms of revenue generated, in terms of exhibitions. The figures are before you. But what emerged is that we created a brand. And we are coming here this afternoon to continue creating that brand. And again, the targets have been given by the President of the African Export-Import Bank. I'm not going to repeat those targets. But what is clear is that we are very ambitious and we are very, very confident. And working together among the 3 parties, the African Export-Import Bank, with whom the African Union Commission has a memorandum of understanding, as well as the gracious host, the government of Rwanda, we should be able to reach those targets. Early this morning, there was a young lady from Senegal who was both a speaker, she stood where I'm standing right now, and she was a panelist in one of the sessions. And she made two critical points. One of them that she would like to grow her business, but she does not know the markets. She's constrained by the fact that she cannot reach out to potential customers. And the other constraint was that she's constrained by lack of finance. She cannot expand. The Intra-African Trade Fair is a platform for trade information. We are going to solve that lack of information. The Intra-African Trade Fair is a platform for bringing buyers and sellers together. We are going to solve that problem of information, or rather, that problem of finance. That is going to be, it will be provided through that arrangement. As already indicated, we anticipate business deals over more than $40 billion. So that is going to be made. We also have another platform for trade information in the African Union, which we are developing in conjunction with the International Trade Center. And this is the African Trade Observatory. Through the observatory, everyone who wants to reach out to the African market will be able to get information on commodities and services that are available for export or import, including their prices. And we are also going to have a trade alert to monitor non-tariff barriers, so that if somebody is adversely affected in the trade arrangements, they can complain in real time and we shall respond. And the platform is also going to have general trade statistics. So we are resolving the issue of trade information. And when it is lacking, it is a critical barrier to trade. And in anticipation of the need to ensure that the Intra-African Trade Fair becomes a growing brand, on the 7th July this year in Niamey, Niger, we are going to launch the operational phase of the Intra-African Trade Fair. And the emphasis here is on operational phase. We launched it when we signed it in this historic city, in this very hall, on 21st March last year. Now, we would like the traders and the investors to operate in that market. And that's why we're saying we're going to launch it. And a lot of people have said, yes, it's going to be launched. But what happens the next day? I said, we are not going to lose a lot of time. We want trade to start almost immediately. And there are a number of instruments that are going to assist us in this regard. The first one is on the regime of rules of origin, so that only goods produced in Africa will be able to enjoy duty-free access to other markets across Africa. The next one is the schedule of concessions, tariff concessions, the schedule of tariff concessions. And the third one is the online non-tariff barriers monitoring and elimination mechanism. And the fourth one, which we have been assisted by the African Export-Import Bank to develop, is the digital payments and settlement platform. And as already indicated, those settlements will be in local currency, with the net settlements coming out in foreign exchange at the end of the year. And that is going to de-risk the market, because the traders will be assured of being paid on time and in full. And the fifth instrument will be the African Trade Observatory Portal. And I already indicated that it is going to really provide information on import and export opportunities, in addition to monitoring, giving us trade alerts on non-tariff barriers and general trade statistics. So with these instruments, when the heads of state and government on 7th July in Niamey say we have launched, business should be able to respond to say we want to move in. And we are working with the national capitals to ensure that this is facilitated. So the rest is up to you, the players in the market, to take advantage of this market. Before I conclude, let me indicate that as a platform that is really focusing on innovation, we are also catering for you in the Intra-African Trade Fair. There's going to be a general sector on ICT where exhibitors, buyers and sellers can meet and try to transact. Furthermore, we're going to have a dedicated startup pavilion for the youth. In my work around Africa, I've challenged the young Africans to say, you are very, very competent with the information and the communication technologies. Give us startups, and we are going to give you a pavilion. And we are going to work with the cooperating partners to ensure that you come to Kigali so that you showcase your inventions, and in that process, you'll be able to meet venture capitalists and other big companies who may be interested in your product. So again, I reiterate that challenge to the youth of Africa. Give us your inventions, and we'll give you the pavilion. The ball is in your court, and it will be in our court when you come forward to say, we are ready. And to ensure that this is a very transparent and professionally done activity, we work with the African Export-Import Bank and other centers around Africa, including those of the private sector that are involved in issues of entrepreneurial development, so that we are able to select the best out of those who will be competing. So that's the platform we are offering. Women are always disadvantaged, and we are also going to cater for them through the African Fashion Pavilion. So we invite you, colleagues, to come and join us in the trade fair when it takes place here in September next year. And we thank you for giving us the platform to launch our activity. And I thank each and every one of you for listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Mchanga, for your remarks. I would like now to introduce Honorable Minister Soraya from the Ministry of Trade and Industry for our remarks. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, P.S. Michel. Your Excellency, Professor Benedict Orama, President and Chairman of the Board of Directors of Afreximbank, Your Excellency, Ambassador Albert Muchanga, African Union Commissioner for Trade and Industry, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor and a great pleasure for the government of Rwanda to have been selected among other countries to host such a big and important event as the Intra-African Trade Fair. I am particularly humbled today to welcome you all in Kigali to launch such an event, which comes at the notable time when the African Union Commission has finally received the needed 22 ratification instruments as a threshold required to kick off the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. Indeed, please allow me to pause for a minute and request you to join me in congratulating the African Union and its member states for such a milestone and strong commitment to the African integration and single market implementation. I believe that as the remaining countries undertake their internal procedures of ratification, they fully understand the sense of urgency and will gradually join the rest of the member states as expected. The Republic of Rwanda continues to appeal to all AU member states to jointly work together to make this continental market a success. On this occasion, I want to thank Afreximbank and the African Union Commission, who proactively undertook the initiative of promoting and boosting intra-African trade through the conceptualization of the Intra-African Trade Fair, in line with Intra-African Trade Strategy. This initiative is geared towards connecting traders and buyers of African goods and services, as well as creating a forum for sharing information on African trade. I also want to thank Afreximbank and all the teams who have worked through the competitive process in making the right choice for Rwanda to host the second IATF 2020. In collaboration with Afreximbank and the African Union Commission, Rwanda remains confident and committed to build on the successes of the IATF 2018 and deliver on the expectations and outcomes for the Intra-African Trade Fair in 2020. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to take this opportunity to also thank the government of Egypt and congratulate them for a successful first IATF that was held in December 2018. I believe that this was a challenging first experience that Egypt made an impactful event of. Rwanda will definitely need to learn from the past experience and endeavor to improve the experiences of the event participants. Challenges that may arise, but collaboration and coordination will be very important and key in finding solutions where constraints arise. I therefore call upon all stakeholders to ensure greater coordination in this process so that together we can make this IATF 2020 a successful event. Important resources, including human, capital, and financial, are required to achieve the IATF objectives. A strong partnership ranging from government institution, Afreximbank, the African Union Commission, the private sector, and financial institutions, be it at continental or global level, is very crucial and important to unlock any challenge that might occur. But more importantly, this partnership will be the lifeline towards fulfilling the overall objectives of the IATF and the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement to increase intra-African trade and also promote a better livelihood for African people. Fostering greater economic ties between the African countries is politically advantageous, but more importantly, makes much more economic sense. Africa is the market of the future. It is a hub of untapped innovation. The Continental Free Trade Area, as one of the flagship projects that the EU should be seen as a huge opportunity, especially by the business community in a wider sense, be it from small and medium-sized enterprises to large companies and Pan-African companies in being competitive on a global scale. As Professor Rama mentioned, we expect to have more than 1,100 exhibitors, more than 5,000 participants, and over $40 billion of deals in trade and investment from across African countries and the rest of the world. This is expected to create a platform as we build a powerful new economic force that Africa is and ought to be. Sensitization, awareness, and mobilization for increased intra-Africa trade should be given more consideration and much more importance going forward. Strategies on communication, awareness, and marketing, not only for the intra-African trade fair as a regular event, but also in assisting individual African countries to align their national trade and investment policies with the continental agenda, are very much needed. Initiatives to increase trade and investment reforms so that we can attract more investment to Africa for infrastructure and productive sectors in order to unleash growth, job creation, and broadening of economic aspiration for our young population, as well as increase livelihood of African people, should be given great attention and call us all to task for urgently implementing the Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. Ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, as I conclude, please allow me once again to reiterate the government of Rwanda stands ready and committed to partner and collaborate with all stakeholders, governments, private sector, and regional, continental, global institutions to drive and make the IATF 2020 a successful event. The IATF 2020, which will take place in Kigali in September 2020. With these few remarks, I therefore declare the IATF 2020 launched. I thank you all so much for your kind attention, and I look forward to welcoming you for a successful event in 2020. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister, for your remarks. We will now proceed to the signing ceremony. The media may now approach the front to document this ceremony. Please. Thank you so much. Thank you for participating to this ceremony. Rwanda looks forward to hosting the Intra-Africa Trade Fair. We now invite the media to join us in the media room after this closing of the Economic Forum for the press conference with Honorable Minister Soraya, together with Professor Benedicto Omara and the Ambassador Albert Muchanga. Thank you all and good evening.